Welcome to the Outer Realm with MicheleDerocher and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee, who have been a part of our journey for the last several years. So thank you, Folgers. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, big thank you to Justice Snicker, aka Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for the contribution of his time, his music, and his voice for the intro you just heard. He is an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, and sci-fi dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite music streaming platforms. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind all of our logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the horror genre, the Halloween genre, and does incredible commission pieces of any sort. So our guest tonight, Jason Offutt, could not make it. He had a schedule conflict. So boo. But we will be rescheduling him to another, we're going to be a few weeks now, but we will be rescheduling him for sure. But tonight we're going to stay the course with talking about different cryptids and monsters, so to speak, and where they're at and the stories that linger around, so on and so forth. It's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, in doing that with me this evening, of course, will be my compadre for open mics, open discussions. Dun, 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 dun. Surprise!
Hey, I'm here.
Stepping in. Thank you. I wanted to just get to people in chat before we fully start the show. And I wanted to make mention that Jim was talking about an experience that they had. So I'm going to just kind of go through this before we get into everything.
Before you before you do, can you just snap me out in the green room for a second and bring me back?
Yep. Okay. So one second. Okay. Are you all right?
I'm good. Yeah. I need to pop out for a second.
Okay. So walking the dogs last night around 9 p.m., the coyotes were howling and yipping. Out of the darkness came a loud, deep gorilla roar. Coyotes stopped immediately, then another equally deep, loud roar. The roar was so loud, he got anxious, called the dogs to the car. Lollipop wandered over, looked at me like I was a giant pork chop with feet and hands and not a care in the world. Got home on the Ontario Sabreport, is that correct? Read 2 incidents recorded in my area over the past 2 weeks. Humbled and honored that I'm no longer anxious, but the roar was soul piercing. See, right there. What does that tell you? Right off the hop, right? So anyway, thank you for sharing that, Jim. We're going to be talking about all kinds of things like that tonight. And hello, Kevin Z-Son. Hello, Kathy. Hello, Patsy. Hello, Mark. Thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you. Again, big hello from Jim. Hello, Vet Girl. Hello, Michael Kennedy. Yes, we do. Absolutely. All right, where are we at? Still marking it down. Yeah, caught you over here. Thank you, Mark. Always so appreciative. Michelle, hello. Keep going down the bottom. Okay, I think we're good. That was last night. That Jim says. Yeah, that is craziness, isn't it? Just crazy. Hi, Carrie. Okay, we're speaking. Hello. Hi, Mish. How are you guys? Oh boy, Tamara on Rumble. Hello. Ojibwe Sasquatch. Okay, thank you. That's fascinating to know that. That's kind of scary to think it was that close to you as well. Um, okay, so as we make our way back down, Ethereal. Hello, Carol Ann. Our guest tonight had a conflict of interest as far as his scheduling went. It was conflicted, so we have to reschedule. 'Cause apparently, he only just realized it. So we're going to carry on with the topic. We're going to reschedule him, and hopefully, we'll do it a little bit of justice this evening. I have no doubt. So here, yeah, I wondered. Yeah, it happens. It happens. So bringing Wayne back. Here we are.
Back for real. Here I am.
For real. There we're back. No, there. Good.
Yeah.
So, okay. Let's see if we can do some of this, a little bit of justice here. So tonight, of course, we're going to be talking about different cryptids. We'll keep it to, throughout the world. And we'll talk a little bit about tulpas. We'll talk a little bit about, not just cryptids, but things that would be considered, monsters, I suppose. Or are they something else? Are they extraterrestrial? Are they multidimensional, such as, let's say, vampires? Right? That's
A lot of theories.
yeah. Doesn't go into to cryptids and such. It's different, but it is a worldwide phenomenon. Ancient cultures through the world have had their own myths and legends. The indigenous people have their oral history. One thing's for certain: it all began with a sighting, a story, maybe an image. The list is endless with respects to where they come from, who they are, what they're all about. You know, but they do tend to find a way into your nightmares and daily travels. It's fascinating stuff. So, where do we start? Where do we want to start?
Oh, I like the idea that it spans the world and it goes back a long way through multiple cultures. And when I was researching just on the vampire lore and then
Mhm,
later the werewolf lore, I was really surprised at how far-reaching it was. Like even in
mhm,
Japan, they have vampire lore and the wolves that walk upright.
mhm,
So it's not just a European sort of legend. They have the Aboriginals also talk about North America Aboriginals
mhm,
talk about the blood suckers, the blood seekers, and then the wolves that walk upright.
mhm. Yeah, we've Lord only knows we've had a lot of experiences with that. So there's a lot of information out there. I think there are stories of mythical beings which have been told and retold. Um, throughout oral history of many different cultures around the world. And they seem to have these striking similarities. People are often left wondering what exactly, these beings are. Um, there's always that theory, or we're just like a zoo type planet with a pile of mismatched beings, as some theorists have suggested. Do we um are we like a dumping ground, for ET? Some people will say no, for sure, that's a thing. Could they be prehistoric beings that somehow find a way to survive into extinction? I mean, there are, certain beings that have come up that are like they were around since prehistoric times. So I don't know. Tamara says, not yeah, and nine-tailed foxes in Japan. Yeah, there's all kinds of them. So why don't we start with oh, Carol Ann, what role do you think the internet and social media play in modern cryptozoology? Do these platforms help legitimize the field, or they primarily lead to more hoaxes and misinformation? Oh boy.
I think it's 50-50, to be honest. I mean, internet's it's a tool, right? I
Yeah.
can use a saw to build a house, or I can cut my fingers off with it. It's just like it's a tool. So
Yeah. I agree. I also think that when we're dealing with Hey, Kazan. I think when we're dealing with, hi, Polly. Um, when you're getting into the internet, it's like everything else. There's a lot of misinformation, misinterpretation. Um, cryptids is really hard. It's like, let's just break it down a little bit. You're getting into, the paranormal. A lot of people have had ghost experiences or paranormal experiences. You just seem to think that they are, they're there, right? They happen and they're easily talked about. It's something that's easy for people to digest because people have suffered loss. Maybe they've had experiences with visitations. I think we talked about that in one of our open mics about dreams and such. Then we have, the field of ufology, and there are many people out there who are experiencers, and whether it's UFO sightings or extraterrestrials, things of that nature. But what do you do with cryptids or monsters,
Well,
so to speak?
well, here's like what we were talking about earlier today about like the sort of muscle memory and DNA imprinting. I think,
Mm,
human beings have been telling ghost stories, like forever. So like
mhm,
collectively, as human beings, we have become somewhat accustomed to, or even comfortable with, the
mhm,
idea of a ghost, a spirit, a specter, things like that.
mhm,
Whereas cryptids, they might enjoy, a 300-year reign, whereas ghosts and spirits could be several thousand years. So we're just it's because it's that unknown, uncomfortable area again,
mhm,
right? I just want to mention something too while I was thinking about it. I was talking about cryptids to someone recently, and they were just like, "What is a cryptid?"
mhm.
I'm like,
Yeah,
that's a very good question. I know what it is, but how do I put it into words?
yeah,
What a cryptid sighting actually is.
yeah. Well, that I think that's part of maybe where the internet comes in handy is the fact that it does raise awareness. People can learn by watching, um, you know, different television shows, and there are a lot of really good ones out there. But there's just a lot of hype out there as well. And it's not like you just see these things popping up everywhere. Not like people haven't had experiences. I think it's a matter of um trying to break down the differences, So let's just start with, for example, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Yeti, whatever the case may be, right? Like we're getting into um, beings. They're all over the world. These guys are all over the world, and the cultures all have stories for them. They just have different names. Like in China, it's called the Yeren. Canada, Sasquatch, Bigfoot. Nepal is the Yeti. Australia is the Yowie. Indonesia is the Orang Pendek. Russia, the abominable snowman, Mank, right? That's used,
Oh,
right?
mink.
Yeah,
Oh,
used by the
yep.
indigenous of the area, right? India,
Indeed.
there's Jungle Man, the Mande Buruk. Florida is the skunk ape. Mongolia is the almas. Ohio, USA has got the grass man. We've got the swamp ape. I mean, there are so many different names for them, but one thing's for certain, they tend to be pretty elusive, and it just seems like people, I think they're the most widely spotted. People tend to see them more often. And maybe that's why they go looking for them. So then, of course, you get extra sightings of them.
Mhm. But again, I go back to Sasquatch and Bigfoot. I mean, we have uh, a memory, even if we don't know. I've never seen one,
Mhm.
but I know what they are. I
Yeah.
could draw you a picture of one.
Yeah.
I could give you all kinds of background and where they are and so forth. But I've never seen one.
Hmm.
But then you bring up another cryptid that's maybe less like a chupacabra or something like that. Like I until recent times, I want to say like 10 years, I
Hmm.
didn't even know what a chupacabra was. So I mean, like it's just like
Watching
I said,
mountain
what?
monsters. They're like hunting
Like
dogs for the
oh,
Bigfoot.
that was classic. Yeah,
I love it.
yeah. The Midnight Whistler, he uses the chupacabra like they use hunting dogs.
I know. It's fantastic.
I'm
I
like,
know.
what? What?
I
You know?
know.
Anyway,
I
that's
know.
so I'm just saying I think for the vast majority of us here in this side of the world,
Hmm.
if someone said to you, whether you're like 10 years old or 100 years old,
Hmm.
Sasquatch, Bigfoot, but oh yeah, 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 hairy thing in the bush, yeah,
Hmm.
never seen one.
Hmm.
So there's that. But like I said, the other stuff is that we have no deep decades of knowledge, that's shared knowledge between our commonality families.
Mhm. Well, I think also, because I completely agree with that, and I think when you're getting into some of the oral history from the indigenous people, here, like all over the world, but I'll go with here in North America because it's where we are. I think they pass these stories along. They're very familiar with them. There are some stories that are amazing where they're very helpful. They're very kind. They watch out for you, or maybe they're protecting areas of the forest and where they live. Then you get stories where they're a little bit more aggressive. I mean, like anything, I guess it depends what your intention are. And if they're telepathic in any way, if you get into the quantum side of things, then they know what you're thinking. And if they figure that you're looking for them to do harm, or do harm to their families, I mean, they're going to get really aggressive, right? Okay, so 1 second. I just want to get to a couple of comments as well. Do you think black-eyed kids are fake like Slenderman? No one is reporting on these. Has ever personally seen one? That is interesting. I don't know. There are a lot of stories out there of people who do actually see them. But I mean, do they fall under the cryptid? Do they fall under the monster thingy? Do they fall under the, are they extraterrestrial? Like there's a lot with that. Like I think tonight we're going to explore it. We're going to see that these three areas tend to connect. Like everything is connected. So it will be a bit of an exploration this evening. Slenderman. When I look at tulpas, I really give a lot of thought, into the mindset. I'm really big on, as you guys know, because you've been listening to me long enough to know that when it comes to tulpas, if you put enough thought into something and you have millions of people who are doing the same thing, now that's getting into maybe Santa, maybe Krampus. Is it because there's such a strong belief in it that there are visuals of it? With Slender Man, what started off as a group of people in a gaming chat room ended up, millions of people started getting in on this. And then they ended up essentially creating so many characteristics that people were getting sightings. But, again, you're looking at something that's a little bit hostile. You're not going to necessarily go up to it and, hey, if you can even get near some of these things, because they just seem to vanish.
Yeah.
Which says a lot right there too, right?
With respect to the black-eyed children, though, I mean, I've only got my own personal stuff to go on, which isn't much on that. I find it's a lot more prevalent in England, or at least it was. I mean, there are people like farmers and guys would go out like shooting rabbits and things like that in the woods, and there'd be this child walking along some old dirt road off the main concession road. And when they approach it, they would turn around and have no eyes, kind of thing, right? So I don't hear a lot of it this side of the ocean, but on that side, even my mom's sister, like my aunt, her husband said he ran into two children on a road near an Air Force base. This was in World War II, and he's like, "Oh, these two kids are walking along. Well, they shouldn't be anywhere near the fence line." And he called out to them, and they turned around. They were normally dressed kids. There's normally two children, a boy and a girl. They turned around and no eyes, right?
Yeah. They're wiggy, I have to say. They really are.
Oh, when I wear the black contact lenses, there people say like, "Mom, he's got no eyes." It's wiggy. It's really wiggy.
Yeah. No, exactly. Black eyes. I don't know. Apparently people, like they say, don't open your door to them. So if that's the case, that's for a reason. So I don't know. It's just one more of those things. Like, what do they fall under? Okay, hold on. I'm going to get to Tamara's comment. In Canada, we also have mermaids and mermen. By the way, there are stories in Ontario which Jason speaks about. So we'll save it for him. But mermaids, mermen, they're out there. Otter people, that's interesting. Fairies, yes. Small Bigfoot, so on. There's tons. There's tons of them, and you don't really think about that. There's
No.
there's the common ones, but then you don't really think about the other ones that are out there, which we'll get to some of them as we go along as well. Um, Jim says, if I ever see a dog man, I'm safe. All you have to do is bring a squeaking ball and a plush toy, and allow me to run away. Could work.
Good work.
Could work,
Oh,
Jim. Could work.
years ago, my friend saw, he swears up and down. He's a big, big guy. He saw that guy walk out of the fog and went into
Yeah.
the fog. And when he came out of the fog, it was on all fours and loping down the road like a small horse. That guy's huge. And he put his truck in reverse and he backed all the way down the street until he got to a cross street and then went up that way. He said, I've never been so scared in my whole life.
Yeah. See, I mean, we're gonna again, we've talked about things like this before, but we're going to, diversify and get into some of that as well. It's a lot of weird connections with some of this stuff. Kevin says, would you say that giant spiders, long, lanky, legged spirit form like thing that we both saw leap on top of a car while driving would be considered a cryptid spirit? Well, here's what I think is kind of out there. You've heard Don Yazzie talk about this on the Navajo Nation, and these things kind of show up, all over the place. Like, I've read of accounts in Europe and such, and on Navajo land, like they've seen these things. There's all kinds of them, and they're just like giant freaking black tarantulas. I'd be freaking dying. Like,
Yeah,
what
no.
the freaking hell is that? You draw the limit at certain things, and it's kind of like, oh,
Anything
but
with 8 legs that's bigger than a sparrow, I'm crying.
yeah, see,
Right
I'm
there.
with you there. I'm definitely there. Um, Michelle makes a good point. I wonder if cryptids reside in different realms. It's a good question. I mean, where do
Well,
they come from? This is something, I always like to get different researchers' perspectives, because if you think about it, there's so much of our planet that is unexplored. I mean, we have depth in our oceans that we've not even gotten close to getting to. At least not that they tell us, but people have given reports, eyewitness accounts, especially through contactees, extraterrestrial contactees and experiencers. There have been people who have been whistleblowers working for certain, branches of military and such, and Navy, who have claimed that there are cities down there, whether there are or they're not. There's something, there have been even sailors through the multiple, centuries who have been lost at sea, or basically not lost at sea, but their ships were lost at sea and that they managed to survive. And I remember reading a story a really long time ago about a man that was saved and brought down into this city, and people shrugged it off as like, oh, you're just delusional, you're just in the water too long, you just, I mean, there was all kinds of reasons. It could all be very valid reasons, but he swore that he was brought down there, he was saved, and he felt like he hadn't been gone, like, or he had been gone for quite some time, but he was returned to the surface on land, and he had not been gone very long. So, I mean, there are stories like that exist.
I think with the whole realm thing, different dimensions,
Mm,
is very plausible. I mean, if you just look at the cases here on good old planet Earth of
mm,
people walking along and just disappear and never heard from again.
mhm,
Like, do they just walk through some sort of dimensional portal and
mhm,
finish up like, where the dragons live?
mhm,
This is like, and same with Sasquatch and things like that.
mhm.
They're just in Sasquatch world, or, the wolves that walk upright world, and they're just walking to the meadow one day and they're just like,
Yeah,
and they're not in, the wolves that walk upright world. They're here going
yeah,
like, hey, Ralph, how did we get here? Where are we? Where'd the meadow go? So it makes
yeah,
me wonder. It's a very good possibility to explain where they come from, where they go, because we lose people all the time.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It gets insane. You have to be so careful. This is where you get into, I like talking to people who specifically have had experiences with certain beings, or have basically, they know people who have, or they go out in the field and they boots on the ground, they research, there are people out there who chase these things. Why?
Because
But
people
there
chase
are.
tornadoes. That's why.
This is true. That's just
Have a
also
death
in there.
wish.
Jim says in England, there were two green-eyed children, a brother and sister, found near a cave.
They had green skin too, I believe,
Green
didn't they, Jim?
skin. Yeah.
Yeah, they came out of a cave. They didn't speak any English.
No.
And they couldn't get back. And when they finally sort of learned the language, the girl more than the boy did, said that, yeah, we came from another place through this cave, and then we went to go back. We couldn't get back. And they lived with this family in England until their passing. And they never grew. They were like 3 or 4 feet tall. They never really grew into like 5 foot, 6 foot adults.
See, again, we're getting into to England,
Everything's cool in England.
Everything's cool, but it's all kind of crazy in England too. So
that's where I came from. That explains a lot.
I know there's a lot out there. There's a lot out there. It's an incredible place, JD, if you think of the black eyes, I wonder if they're ET with lenses. I would think that's a possibility.
Definitely possible.
In some of the sightings, I could see that. But these look specifically, as description with some of them anyway, as just your eyes, just like blacked out, which is interesting.
Oh, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Just saying.
Yeah, you've done it.
Yeah, I have.
Mark, that's interesting, Wayne, about England. My parents claim that they saw one stood down the road from us about 2 hours and didn't move. Okay. When what? What was that further up in the conversation?
No, we're talking about the black-eyed children. He said
black-eyed children. Oh, one, right. Okay.
Yeah, one of them stood down the street for 2 hours and didn't move. Now, is that a glitch in the Matrix type of thing again, where it's just he's popped in and can't pop out?
It's crazy to just stand there for 2 hours and stare at you. It was ridiculous. That's nuts. I hadn't heard of black-eyed kids until a year ago from Dave Schrader, often talking about them. How do they differ from people that are possessed? They say their eyes turn black. Sure. I think I've heard of people's eyes turning black even who aren't possessed. So I think anything's possible.
I don't know if I can pull up a definitive answer that separates black-eyed children from someone who is possessed.
But again, it's the crossing over of
like black-eyed children. Any sort of thing I've heard from them, any experiencer that's run into them, they don't really run at you or try to get you or do anything bad to you. They just say, don't invite them into your car or your house. They just kind of watch you. They're almost like just little kids that watch you as they go by. They don't really try to take over, whereas someone who's possessed tries to hack your head off.
Well, they definitely act a little more hostile, but we don't know, because with black-eyed children, they say you don't let them into your space, you don't let them into your home, don't invite them into your home. Kind of sounds vampiric in a way.
Well, yeah, right.
They need that invitation.
There was some footage probably 2 years ago of a guy just testing a drone out. He had farm fields with whatever he was growing. I can't even remember now. But he thought he's talking and he's just saying basically, I got the drone because I don't have to walk the entire field. I can just run the drone across it, and I'm checking it out. I got a new drone. I'm really happy with it. And his property banks onto like a forested area, and he zips up and down, and he's just talking about silliness. And then I guess he's with a friend, and his friend kind of goes, back up, turn around. I saw something. And they zip it around and they come whipping back. And what'd you see? He goes, I saw something in the edge of the wood line. And now they're joking, right? Yeah, they're joking with each other. Yeah. Like, oh, you saw nothing. You had too much last night, blah, 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 blah. And he zooms back, and there's this girl. She's just standing there like young, like 5, 6 years old. But she's looking down at the ground, like at her feet, not moving, nothing. And they kind of buzz back and forth. And then she looks up. and then she's got like the no eye look thing like that. They're like, oh, you know, and when
Yeah.
they come back, they do another pass, she's no longer there.
Yeah. See,
Now
she
that
just
that could be a
disappeared.
hoax. Like I'm always like, you know, because that's what I used to do. I used to do fun stuff like that. But it's always could be a hoax. But if it's not, it's very compelling.
Mm-hmm. Well, now with, AI and CGI, things like that, it's always have to be so careful. But I
Mhm.
remember that video. It didn't look anything like anything special. It was just looks like
No,
it did look like a drone video. Not that they didn't have somebody, way down below dressed up a certain way
sure.
to, I mean, anything's possible. It looked pretty good though.
I mean, I used to do
Um,
stuff like that way before CGI, and it looked pretty good.
yeah, right. There you go. Jim says, so are the cryptids caused by an interdimensional rift that allows them to enter into our world? I think there's different theories with that personally, and you guys can chime in. I think we have power spots and portals all over this planet. There's known vortices, or most people will say vortexes. Um, they have them everywhere. A lot of the triangles have them. You know, like the Bermuda Triangle, the Alaska Triangle. A lot of them have these vortexes within the area. There are a lot of them in the mountains. Like we've talked about this before. A lot of the ancients would build in and around them. And when you start thinking about that, you start getting into the different mythology of all these beings that were like half animal, like the Minotaur or the Centaur. You have to wonder, like, were these real beings, half man, half beast, getting into the Egyptology, even, like Anubis, and you're getting into Isis, and there's all kinds of different stuff throughout history. So do they come swinging in on a ley line? Do they come out of a portal? Can they create portals? Or have they been here all along within the depths of unexplored areas? Like, we can get into the whole inner earth thing where they have, I mean, there's all kinds of accounts of
Yeah.
that.
I think when it comes down to like rifts and things like that, I think the question is like, is it a natural occurring
Mm,
anomaly that the passerby just happens into and it's like zip, you're into
mhm,
another dimension,
mhm,
or do they control it? Do they go, let's go visit Earth now, and they
mhm,
just snap their fingers, push a button in the air, whatever they do,
mhm.
and they open the portal and then go through? That's more curious to me if it's a controlled or a natural occurring. I just don't know which it is.
Mhm. Absolutely. Or maybe like Tamara says, veil is thinning. Also
Mm-hmm.
very, very strong, possibility there also. Hi, Adrian.
Well, the
So I
veil's
think,
been thinning since 45 when they dropped those two atom bombs. And then
mhm,
they did a whole bunch of atom bomb testing. The veil's been
mhm.
punched over and over and over again, and then we've got other things running amok in Switzerland,
Yeah,
causing all kinds of grief.
yeah, yeah. I'm just getting to everybody. I will get into everybody's comments and questions. I'm just trying to go in order, trying to keep us up with the conversation. Okay, next. JD, when I sit at night and watch the forest, I see little tiny explosions, much like small fireworks, though see through. It happens quite often, sometimes little orbs, right colored. Oh my goodness. It's so funny. Wayne and I were just talking about this the other night because we were
Exactly.
seeing this stuff. And I'll tell you, this is a crossover as well. In working in the field of the paranormal, working with different families, with who had malevolent experiences, um, something interesting happened. They had what looked like little sparklers manifesting, just in the atmosphere. And when they saw these little sparkler type lights, they would hear tearing sounds, like something was just kind of tearing its way through. I've heard the same thing in contactee experiencers when they're describing when something, coming into the space. So, maybe it's just a static thing. Because if you zap yourself, let's say, I always, like, certain times of the years, I'll zap myself on a shopping cart, or it drives me freaking crazy. But sometimes you'll see a little, so can that be scientifically explained away? I don't know.
Hmm.
But that seems to be a thing as well. So we're getting into the orbs and such. Those are seen in cryptozoology as well. They're seen around, UFO sightings or ET sightings, and they're seen in the paranormal. I think it's just another, in some cases, a lot of it can be scientifically explained away. But then in other cases, you're really looking at something that just seems to be a bit of an anomaly that shows up around other things. And if you can get a combination of everything happening at the same time, it just gives more validity to the orb theory that you may be, or the orb experience you may be having. Any comments, Wayne?
About orbs. Well, I can tell you all about orbs. We've got some fantastic pictures, that have more than just the soap bubble.
Videos.
Videos. The one that aside from the videos of the manor, I remember down in the States one time at a place in Pennsylvania at the Stinson residence, and it was empty. Like, it was empty. They were looking to make it a museum or whatever else, and we got to tour it. It was kind of cool. And I took a million pictures, like, just everywhere, because I love the architecture. It just hadn't been touched. Beautiful, fantastic floors, everything, right? And there were no ghostly pictures, nothing peculiar. Even in the room, one of the rooms had been sealed off for 90 years, and they'd opened it up, and there was papers and chairs and stuff inside. Really wild looking. Nothing. No dust, zero. And then in the dining room, I took one picture, and there was an orb on the curtain. I didn't even notice it at first, and I looked at this thing. I zoomed in on it, and it was a total face. And I looked at the face compared to the gentleman of the house, Mr. Stinson. It was him. It was him in that little soap bubble. So that was, to me, that was such a compelling picture, because there was nothing else in the entire house. Zero, except for that.
Yeah, that gets crazy. There are some people who really, in research, really go against orbs. I think if you get a light anomaly, which will sometimes include orbs, and you can catch it in conjunction with other things that may be happening, it does add to, to the validity of what the experience is. Because you get orbs. Some people research orbs specifically, especially colored ones and such. And I just have to keep an open mind, period.
Yeah, I had, what do you say about, things collaborating together to make it, to validate? I think the one personal experience that I had at the manor early days was working up in the attic and running new electric through the upstairs. And it was hot. It wasn't even a chilly day. It was warm. And I was just taking pictures of sort of the before and after of the garbage wiring, and then the proper wiring, just, for anybody who wants to know. And my dad had been gone quite a few years at that point in time, but he used to smoke a pipe. And whenever he's around, I used to be able to smell the pipe tobacco, because it was very distinctive, very, very, it wasn't like cigarettes. It was very, very distinctive aroma. And usually when he was around, it was because there was something interesting, or I had to pay attention. Smarten up, slap in the back of the head kind of thing. But anyway, I smelt it, and I was just like, oh yeah, I know you're here, kind of thing. I took a bunch of pictures of the wiring, and then when I got out of the attic and I'm going through the pictures, there was numerous green orbs, and I guess I had the phone on live mode, so there was that moment where the picture moves and stays still, so I could see the green orb move across the rafters and come down, and where it stopped and you zoomed in, it was my dad, but he was a young man. He was probably 20, 25, jet black hair, a little bit of a beard, and I was just like, oh, that's him, look at that. And I remember showing it to Michelle that day or two later, go, look at this picture, that's my dad.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it coincided with the pipe smell.
See, so you have that, that double event occurring. Carol Ann, do you believe the Mothman is purely physical creature, a tulpa, or is it nature's more supernatural? Or is it nature more supernatural, or a different kind of phenomena altogether? Mothman's a tough one.
I think it's otherworldly.
All of the above.
I don't think that's not from around here.
Can I phone a friend? when maybe Jason's done his other show right
Yeah.
now. Yeah, not from around here. You know what? I think it's like many things. I don't know, that it's a tulpa per se, because there have been sightings of Mothman pretty much at different parts of the world. It always seems to be around the time where a disaster happens. Now, in Point Pleasant, people have said, well, did he cause it? Or was he there because he knew it was going to happen, which means gift of, premonition, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think one was spotted also when the nuclear plant or reactor in Japan went off many years ago.
Yep.
Well, people claimed that they saw what looked like a Mothman flying not too far above it. But at the same time, okay, let's bend our minds a little bit more. At the same time, I think Joe has a photo that was sent into him that is on the iCar site where there looked to be like it was a craft right up there as well. So what are we dealing with exactly? Are we dealing with cryptid? Are we dealing with ET? Are we dealing with tulpa? Are we dealing with something just plain old supernatural?
Let's take it one step further.
Okay, go crazy.
Yeah. If it is a premonition, so it's arriving to warn us of a danger that's happening. What if they're a time traveler? What if the Mothman is a being that exists in 3035, but knows what happens in 2023, and comes back through time to try to warn us?
Yeah, I see, and that's always a possibility. Like, why do we assume because it looks really far out there that sometimes it looks scary, you assume that you're there to wreak a little bit of havoc? But I mean, they have been known. There are a lot of beings out there that have been known to show up during times of turmoil, right? So I mean, we can even get into the Hopi legends, with the Hopi, basically with the ant people underground who took them underground in time of cataclysm. We can deal the same thing with one of the cultures in Peru where a reptilian took them underground and he cared for them, he educated them, made sure that they were fed. They were down there for a while because of cataclysm again, getting into the earth changes and ice ages, etc. But during time of great cataclysm, it just seems that there are beings already on the planet that are coming forward and helping little old us during these times. So I don't know. Look at reptilians can be pretty big and scary, and that's just one of those things that fall under what I guess maybe falls under the monster thing, not a cryptid, so it falls into the other category. But again, you're looking at, people say, well, they're extraterrestrial. They're sounding like they're pretty much terrestrial, as some of them are, and maybe have been long before us.
So say long before us, they could have been here. Maybe
Yes.
They were here before us and went underground during the last ice age and made homes there and thought, well, I think we'll just stay.
Well, sure.
Until someone shows up and says, hey, this is me, this is where I'm from, this is what I do, whether it's a ghost, whether it's an extraterrestrial or a cryptid, it's all guesswork.
Well, it is. And there are beings that were here. We're not the first kick at the can. They were here millions of years before us.
Yep.
If you're getting into the whole inner earth thing, which we can definitely do moving forward, we can get into, the catacombs and all these tunnels that are all over the world, really. But, they were discovered in California, and they were mapped, and they were, there were witnesses, photos were captured, I think, even in Malta. Some of these cave systems where people go in cave diving, they get into some really crazy spots. And there have been all kinds of stories that have come come from these people who have experienced either portals or different types of beings, reptilians being one of them. Like it's insane, the stories that are out there. Michelle says, do some cryptids hold the power to manifest? Well, it's harder for other cryptids. Maybe that's why we're seeing more Bigfoot than Dogman, for example. Yeah, could be the dynamics.
Don't know enough about that. It's always a possibility, you know. Like I watched that one episode of In Search of Bigfoot, and they did a really good job on it. And I liked the one person who was a complete skeptic.
Yeah.
Through the whole thing, like she worked with primates.
Yeah.
Very, very strong-minded, very, very educated, amazing, you know. And then the day that they're filming and they hear like noises and running through the water and all that stuff, and they catch it on camera, but not it exactly. They could see the shadow moving across the rock wall. Yeah. And the shadow disappears, and her mind's just like, I mean, I saw it. I know I saw it, but I don't know what I saw. I don't know where it went.
Yeah.
But I have the film footage of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it is. She's sitting there through the whole show going, I honestly don't know what I saw. And to me, that's so compelling when someone who is extremely educated in their field sees something that they just have to sit down and scratch their head and go, I don't know. I know I saw what I saw, but I don't know what I saw.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's, I'm sure there are situations out there where it is mistaken identity, or sometimes you see something from the corner of your eye, but you don't really get a good look at it. Some of these are really elusive. Now there are places you can go, and I'll go back to the land between the lakes where people have seen both. Now the land between the lakes is in the Kentucky, Tennessee areas where people have been like savagely and brutally murdered. And the Shawnee spoke of, a shape-shifting shaman who could, take the form of monstrous creatures, right? And then, of course, we've got the whole skinwalker lore, which we can, which we've talked about many times in the show, and so is Don Yazzie on Don't Whistle at Night. Many of their guests have come in, but it is a really big, North American indigenous lore. But the Ojibwe also, folklore and the legend states that there were beings that walked the line between man and animal, which we know. We just talked about it, different cultures throughout the world, especially in ancient Greece and Egypt, like they're there. But they appear to be types of supernatural creatures like a Dogman and Bigfoot. And then there's hybrids called the Gugwe, a hybrid of both. Can you imagine? Like that would be crazy, right?
I can't imagine.
And Bigfoot within that area are known as face eaters, which is
how lovely.
I know, right? God, it's terrifying. And Dogman and Bigfoot are said to be at war with one another. This is a story that comes out of there. You guys can research it. I always try to find things when I'm looking things up that people can go and explore on their own, keep things easy. But it's said that the Bigfoots are in the south regions and the Dogmen are in the north. And there's a huge belief that military have covered up the brutal events that have taken place here and may have even captured a Dogman to study. Witnesses have seen military trucks going by with one specific incident with a Dogman in a cage on the back. And remember, guys, this used to be an area that was settled. Like the settlers came in there. I think it was like the early 1700s, right? And even back then, they were reported seeing shadowy figures, seeing things from the corner of their eye, like we're talking about, moving at incredible speeds. Eerie lights. Remember, we were talking about the lights just a few minutes ago with JD. Eerie lights that dance over the lake, but mangled bodies that have been so savagely torn apart. Kind of reminds me of Alaska Killer Bigfoot.
I was just thinking that exact thing.
Right?
Yeah. They weren't even eaten. They were just like arms pulled out of their socket and left on the beach and the body dumped in the water completely intact. It's just like, I do not want you here.
Pretty much,
Yeah, that's what I got from it.
And this is like the same idea. Like the body's in such bad shape that they say it could not have been done by natural predators. So in the 20th century, things took a turn. U.S. government evacuated the area under the pretense and guise of creating a national park. But the problem is the murders did not stop because it was a national park that people could go stay at. So things kept going. There's so much stuff on it. Land Between the Lakes, guys. Look it up. It is just crazy stuff. It really is. Fascinating, you know. Um,
What are your thoughts on the moon-eyed children? We have
Go
the
ahead.
black-eyed children. What about the moon-eyed children? They were like sort of New England, sort of the American Northeast.
Yeah,
They
go
were the
ahead.
Aboriginals used to talk
Yeah.
about them, and they only came out at night. They had huge eyes. They were very light sensitive, and
Hmm.
they would trade with them for a while. But then I don't know what quite happened. If they got some mistrust going on there, but they just got rid of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
Moon-eyed children.
and again, that's we don't know. We just don't know. Is it conditioning because of where they live? Did they find a way up to the surface? Did they find a way out of a cave system? Did they find their way down dimensional? Like, what is it exactly? I'm just getting through questions. I will definitely be getting to everybody. Um, Jim says most intriguing evidence for me is the filming at Carmel, Maine, in the old funeral parlor. Stopped and became occultism, and that demons, which played him. Okay, I probably lost on that. I probably got lost somewhere in the in the conversation. We are taught in Ojibwe customs not to mention the Wendigo or the white skinwalker. Yeah. The more you give them recognition, the more power they inherit.
Mhm.
100%. 100%. And again, we've talked about the skinwalker. What is interesting to me is a lot of the Native American cultures, um, the oral history. I mean, they all talk about them, and there's just some areas like when Donna had been on the show a couple times. The Navajo Nation. When you think Skinwalker Ranch, Blind Frog Ranch, there are things like Skinwalkers seem to go along that whole mesa right through the Navajo Nation. Things are so crazy in the Navajo Nation that they've got the paranormal rangers, right? So the rangers that get called in just for this the highly strange stories, whether it be Bigfoot and you know talking to Don off camera sort of thing. It's like there's a lot of things that get called in. I mean, Bigfoot's going after cattle and after sheep and chickens. And then, like, I mean, they have giant spiders. Like, what? Right? They've got the goat man. You've heard him talk about it, like a square window opening up in the sky, entrances into inner earth, reptilians. That's just barely scratches the surface. But the skinwalker, very prevalent along the entire mesa, because from the Navajo Nation to Skinwalker Ranch, I believe he said it was about 4 hours.
I
That's
think the
quite a
thing that
hike.
made me laugh from him was when you were talking to him, and he's such a nice guy.
Mm.
And you said like, what's the strangest thing that's happened to you in your life? And
Mm.
without missing a beat, he goes, "Well, last night."
Last night.
Last night, most of us will go, "Well, about 15 years ago, I had this thing happen." Not him.
No,
Yesterday.
last night. I know.
Good
That's
grief.
pretty funny. It is when you think about it. But there are some areas that are so prevalent. Like, the information is so through the roof. How can, you know, and this was like one of my questions, and I will ask Jason the next time he's on as well. So I'll pose it to you guys. What makes an area so what makes it a hotbed of all of this crazy stuff? All in one place.
Well, watching some of the stuff that we've seen, there's a lot of evidence pointing right now to large meteor impacts all through that whole area.
Hmm.
So I don't know if what was on the meteor to make it go boom. I don't
Yeah.
know, but that could
Yeah.
definitely. We know that certain minerals in the earth will cause all kinds of weird stuff to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. An X.
I'm with you, brother.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Ooh, spooky. Yeah, spooky. Darn sure. Yeah, the energies at the location, ley lines, it's all there. And you have the Grand Canyon not too far either, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff there. So we're gonna venture around a little bit. My take on the missing 411. Oh my God. Huh. That's a tough one. I've watched so many things on the missing 411, and there's so many different theories. I mean, how do people go missing? You're walking a hike together, one's ahead of you, one's in the back. You maybe have 25 feet between you, and you turn around, that person's just gone.
Hmm.
Just gone, never to be seen again.
So again, I go back to, is that a natural occurring portal or vortices? Or is that someone going, oh, look, there's a guy we can pluck? And they snatch that person as they're walking along.
Well, okay, see, there's also lens to that. There's a belief, a lot of these national parks are believed to also have underground bases, right? And if that's the case, it's kind of a good place. People get lost in national parks all the time. And in all fairness, lost. But in all fairness, sometimes bones are found, decades later, sometimes just, like less than a decade, sometimes never, right? So I don't know. That's a real tough one, Zifan. I'm just so torn with that one because, or Kazan, sorry, I'm torn with it because they tend to want to blame it on Bigfoot. They tend to want to blame it on, different things like that. But there's not really. Is there evidence of that?
No.
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes, and there are people who've said, that children who have been relocated or have been found after they've been missing. One little girl had been missing for 3 days, and I believe she claimed that a Bigfoot helped her. And there was another child, I think a little bit older. I think this little girl might have been about 3. But there was an older child that I think had been missing for a few days, and she claimed it was a tall white who had helped her. So now we're crossing over into the, extraterrestrial. But mind you,
well, there was 2 stories that I heard. Was the one little boy went missing from wasn't a campground like we have the provincial parks or the state parks. This is just a open country. You drive in so far, and then you have to hike. And they turned their back on this kid for 10 minutes while he's playing, and they went back. The kid was gone. I mean, gone. They called in the rangers, everything, couldn't find this kid for 4 days. And they turned up just down the stream a little bit 4 days later, and they said, where were you? And he said, the hairy man helped me. Like the hairy man helped me. He was so nice. He got me food. I was cold. I was wet. He got me. He covered me. Looked after me. And the other one was another little boy, and he was gone. Same idea. Camping, disappeared. People in a panic. He turned up much later. Like I want to say, like a week to 10 days, if memory serves. And they said, "Where were you?" And he said, "The little people took me."
See,
the little people took me down under the ground, and I stayed with them for a while. And they said to me I couldn't stay, so they brought me back up and brought me here. So
yeah.
Sorry, that's not the computer. That's the bird.
The bird.
The bird is making video.
Bird wants her
sounds.
2 cents of airtime in there. Is that the 6-year-old wearing a bathing suit barefoot? She was found 3 days later, 7 miles in a cave entrance. She said she just woke up there on grass. Yeah, I think people, I think maybe, some of the Bigfoot will help. But I also agree with everybody's series with portals. It's not hard to actually create a portal. I mean, people can teach you how to do it. It can be done. But if you just wander off into one, look at that woman who was in her car with her son. And she said to her son, she forgot something. I guess they were there hiking earlier. And she just said, sit right here. I can see the car. I'm just coming right up to this part of the mountain. or up the embankment, and she wasn't very far away. And he said, "Yeah, I'll stay here." Anyway, he decided to not stay there, and got out of the car and started wandering in after her. And she turned around, saw him, and then he was just gone.
We will name that child Will Robinson.
Will Robinson.
Stay in the car. Don't move.
I like the series. It started to annoy me after a while because of that.
leaves the car. Gets in trouble.
Yeah, kids in trouble all the time. So that's my take. I just think these national parks, much like Canada's provincial parks, are massive, and you do have a lot of these cryptids. You do have a lot of portals. You do have military. It's that's there. It's all over the place. Just get into areas like Mount Shasta, other places in California, where people do Bigfoot research, and it's off limits. If they cross over into military territory, best not go after them. They're pretty much protected. In fact, you can be charged for murder in California for trying to take down a Bigfoot. So
it's funny how the Bigfoot know it too. They're being tracked, and then they just turn left, and they know they're no longer on common ground. They're on state-owned ground, and no, you can't come in here. Get caught in there, you're in trouble. You're looking at a jail time, big time.
You are for sure.
Yeah. Well, there was a kid that went missing with his dad on a hunting trip. They were literally just got off the road, parked. They started walking the main trail up the hill. It was in the spring where the snow is still down in places. His dad said he took his eyes off this kid for like a minute, and he was gone. The kid was gone. They called in everybody. They're saying, well, there's bobcats and so forth around. No bobcat's going to carry my 8-year-old kid. There's no way. Yeah. And when they found this kid, like, I want to say something like 26 or 27 miles away, days and days later, he was dead. But they're like, he had no shoes. They found his shoes not far from where he went off the trail.
Yeah.
And so this kid walked 27 miles through snow and bitterly cold temperatures, like going in the opposite direction of his father. Like, how did he get there? There was no footprints. There was no big cats. There was nothing. How did this kid just dematerialize and rematerialize miles away from anyone? It's craziness.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy. We can share the force together with Bigfoot. I actually think, it's not a bad idea. I mean, it's believed that they're highly intelligent. They're telepathic. And I think that's why when you go out there, if you're thinking positive, like you're not going to do harm, some of these beings are just very protective of the forest itself.
Yeah.
Period. So what about thunderbirds? Chime in, everybody. Thunderbirds. That gets, I've heard different variations of that. I've heard like actual birds, like eagle size, but giant. I mean, look like eagles, but they're just massive thunderbirds. You see a lot of them at the top of, totem poles are just magnificent. And then there's the ones that look like pterodactyl. I'm going to show you guys a video, actually. God, you guys are in luck. I just found this today. And I thought, let's just have a look at this because it looked crazy. So I'm going to see if I can bring this up over here. So give me 1 second. Bringing it up on X. Okay, 1 minute. I'm going to bring this up. It's about a minute long. So hold on. Let me see if it'll let me make it bigger. No, it won't. Okay. Well, I can't make it bigger, but I can share it. So bear with me. Here we go. And tell me what you guys think when you see this. This apparently was floating around many years ago.
It's ball lightning. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, ball lightning. And it looks like a pterodactyl. And this is what they're claiming. Okay, so I'm going to play it. Here we go. Just watch this thing. Before the time of AI, that's for sure. If it's anywhere near authentic, this is what people have reported seeing.
I've seen numerous videos and footage of things. Yeah, see, that's like zoom in on that. That's definitely got the crown of a pterodactyl.
It does. I think when it turns, you see it also. See, there it is.
Yeah, yeah. See, you can really see the crown there.
Mm-hmm.
See, that right there is the only part of that video I don't dig,
Yeah,
is because in flight, if you tipped that way,
it would take you down, you
it
would
would pull
think.
you down. And I that's the one part I have a little bit of difficulty with, just the aerodynamics. But hey, I'm
Yeah.
no aeronautical engineer, and I certainly don't know dinosaurs that well.
I know. That's what I mean. Like it's different, but these are the kind of things that people are saying, no, this is what the Thunderbird actually is. I I am all about this as well. Tamara, I believe they come through portals. Yes. People have seen, even through remote viewing, you've seen like there've been dragons.
Hmm.
There have been things that even, let's talk Loch Ness. You're looking at some places just cannot sustain a creature that big, right?
Yeah.
So the stealth fighter, yeah, could not fly. Hold on, paranormal. Hello, cat. How are you? Also, the dinosaurs filmed in the Congo before AI. Yes,
Hmm.
yes, dinosaur film. This is apparently Hawaii, is what they're saying.
My other
So,
thought on the Thunderbird is misunderstood technology.
mhm,
If you came through, you know, into, let's say, even 200 years ago, never mind 3,000 years ago, if you came through with a some kind of aircraft that could break the sound barrier. Let's look at the
mhm,
Concorde,
mhm,
right? The old Concorde. It's got a really sculpted body with the V-wing kind of shape to it. If
mhm,
it zipped across the sky and then the sky went kaboom because it broke the sound barrier,
mhm.
that would be somebody looking up going, oh, it's a bird, but it's a thunderbird because it makes the sound of thunder. And again, like, what happens when you break the
Possibly.
sound barrier? Do you actually temporarily slip into another, not even another dimension, but another time period? And you come back as you break the sound barrier. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know enough about it, but so many times you have misunderstood technology, and they just don't have any words for it. They can't go, oh, that's an aeroplane, because we know what an aeroplane is. They go,
Mhm.
it's a bird. Birds fly, and it makes a noise. It's a thunderbird.
Mhm.
You know,
Well, I'll tell you, like, it's
for free.
considered. Sorry,
You'll tell me for free.
for free. It's believed by many of the indigenous people of North America that it is considered to be a supernatural being. They believe that it inhabits dense forests. People throughout the last 200 years have had numerous sightings of a giant bird that looks, that have been written about, let's say, in these stories. They have roughly a 16-foot wingspan. They've been described as being the size of a plane. Sightings as recent as 2012 have been reported. I'm sure there are even more. One young girl had claimed at the time that the wingspan was probably 14, but it's hard to look at it. Very large beak and no feathers on the head. It swooped low enough over their camp that it caused her to run into the cabin in fear. Now, in 1922, a man named Hiram Cranmer claimed to see a flock of them, no less, and the group of men manually managed to actually kill one. So there is a photo out there dubbed the Lost Thunderbird photo, but again, there are two almost exact. So, but one's a pterodactyl and one's a thunderbird. So I
Mm.
don't put a lot of merit into it. Kat says she had a friend from BC message me a couple of years ago asking if I had heard of the pterodactyl. She heard reports of one flying across Canada from west to east. It's crazy. But yeah, I suppose it's possible, you know.
There was
Um,
one show I was watching way back. There was a native guide. I think it was in Alaska, or it could have been in the Northwest Territories. And he was taking a group of people through, and they kept asking him, why do you keep looking up? Like, aren't you worried about like grizzly bears and things like that? And he just quietly just like, no. He's like, the thunderbird will take you before a grizzly will get you.
see?
And he's just walking through there, and he's just looking up and just walking, looking up. If it comes down, you'll be gone in a wink.
Yeah, see, it's
This
crazy.
is a guy that takes it seriously, obviously.
Yeah. When you start getting into things like that, I mean, there have been reports of children being like where they've attempted to pick up children. I remember I used to film a show called Creepy Canada. It's an oldie, but people love it. It's on Apple now. I think it's been on Netflix under maybe a different name, but it's interesting because they did cover a story in Canada where a young girl had actually been picked up by a thunderbird, and I guess the adults went and were able to try to grab hold of her and then just let her go at that point. But it's just pretty substantial. Like it's crazy. Remember that? Yeah, oldie but a goodie. Um, so okay, thank you. Let's touch a little bit on some of the obscure. How about yeah, huge in the sky, pelicans. Yeah, I don't know that they'd be able to pick up a child though, would they? Like, do they have?
They have web feet. They
Yeah,
couldn't.
that one might be kind of hard. Um, yeah, I think I filmed 4 or 5 segments from there for that. Let's talk about your go-to thing. Let's talk about vampires and immortality. We could talk about, the Count Saint Germain after. If we could touch on that. But what intrigues me the most about that story, talking about vampires, is one of those things that go bump in the night. We've often talked about, are they, just a race of beings, maybe ET beings, or maybe dimensional, multidimensional, or are they actually just supernatural?
Not from around here.
Not from around here. All right, I'm with it.
Yeah, I mean, you go back in any history, like I've always said in the stories that I write, there's a story, and in that story, it gets extrapolated. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it's just this massive tale. But it started from one little thing. Somebody saw something somewhere, and then it went from there. Now, whether they were a race of people from another planet, another dimension, the far reaches of our own planet underground, not quite sure where it comes from, but there's enough of them out there to make you realize, okay, this is not just like a Transylvania, Romania thing. It's there everywhere. And I always used to, early days of me trying to understand vampires, because I had a thing for them ever since I was little, trying to understand what they were. I used to think that it's misunderstood. So if somebody shows up and says, I'm going to take your life force from you, to a primitive person, it would be like, well, you're going to drain my blood, because if I don't have any blood in me, I die. So things that did they go, well, I met a being today that kind of looked like us, but he killed my neighbor just by looking at him. He took his life force, and the neighbor goes, oh, he took his blood. Oh.
Yeah.
So it could be something like that,
Yeah. Well, thank you, JD. Yeah, I think that a lot, again, misinterpretation.
Could be that.
The story that intrigues me is always book 3, the story, of Aramis being in the war, and the story. But that story actually came from something you found in research. Do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, sure, I can. Absolutely. When I write historical fiction, for those of you who don't know. So it's vampires, but I tie them into real events so that they feel and seem real, they act real, and it gives it a level of terror more than just like, I'm Count von so-and-so with $1 billion. And what I found, I was doing the book 3 on World War One, and it unfolds in the battlefields of World War One. But while I was researching that, what I encountered was something really interesting. This is a long time ago. I can't really remember all the names and details now. But the individual responsible for writing Nosferatu, his brother, if memory serves, was on the German side in the army, like marching from one location to another. and they weren't going to make it because it was getting dark. So they came into this township, this village, had farms and barns and things. So the commanding officer went to the homeowner, the barn, the farmer, and said, "Can I have my men sleep in your barn tonight?" Excuse me. And the gentleman said, "Yes, you can sleep in my barn tonight, but once you get in there, I want you to put the bar across the doors and don't open them for anything, because there's creatures in the woods." And they kind of scoffed. It's just like, "Oh my God, here's the old villager," And they laughed at him and said, "We're not afraid of things in the woods. We have guns." And the account was, the guy didn't, like, facial expression of zero, just said, "Guns won't help you."
Mm.
And that night, these things came to the barn and they were pounding on the barn doors and clawing at it and shrieking and howling. It was just a nightmare. These guys were terrified. They were shooting through the gaps in the barn walls,
Mm-hmm.
and they never stopped. The screaming and banging never stopped at all. And when they
Mm.
got up in the morning, there were all these marks in the doors and stuff. And that guy went on to talk to his brother about this horrific experience they had at this barn. And then he took artistic license to create Nosferatu.
See,
So
crazy.
then I took an artistic license and had my vampire guy, meet that brother in the actual trenches in France, right? And that he was the demon that they saw that night, not in the barn.
See, the fact that this was written about because it happened,
It happened.
a sighting, an experience, which is what a lot of these things come through, right? And it just makes its way through the earth or through the ages, because the story keeps being told and retold. So we get into like the Count Saint Germain, for example. So if we're getting into, like, first of all, like the vampire culture, like or the vampire, the notion of vampires, I mean, it's very, very old. Cultures around the world for thousands of years all shared stories about blood drinking creatures, and the earliest count goes back to ancient Mesopotamia. Yes, it absolutely does. And they were some of the first known record keepers of the time, and they already had a fear of the dead coming back to life. So you're getting into some, really long time folklore about this, and superstitions, would literally echo across the centuries. And you know, people, as they would migrate throughout the different parts of the world or immigrate, they would take that folklore with them, and maybe some vampires, But the biggest one is the Count Saint Germain, and he had been around. This is one of those stories that goes back. They believe that he had been around for like maybe hundreds of years. And they believe it's because, how did he achieve immortality? Well, I mean, it says right there that Albert Einstein accidentally proved the validity of Count Saint Germain. Right there. It's hard to believe it, but he did. He looked at the theories and basically did his scientific equations. Comes back to the Hermetic principle of as above, so below. But essentially, with the Count Saint Germain, he was an alchemist, and he had, there had been accounts of him being spotted within some of the royal entourages of Europe, going back as far, they say, the 1700s. It's believed maybe even earlier. What were some of the last reports? Going back into the 80s in New Orleans. Right there. So how did he achieve it? How is that? Can it be explained away with alchemy, or was it something else? Was he really made back then? And if so, by who? How? It's crazy stuff, but I love it because it's just such an obscure thing. People look at vampires as just being, oh no, it's just a story made up, but it's not. There are ancient cultures that believed that these beings existed. Right?
I don't know enough about that guy. I know when I was in Salem, Massachusetts, and doing the tours and all that stuff, I was just sitting having breakfast, and you know, I look the way I look. And,
Yeah.
you know, and this couple basically said, "Oh, you could fit right in here. You look very, very gothic," kind of thing. And thank you, blah blah blah. What are you doing here, kind of thing. And she said, "Oh, I got to tell you a story. I went up the street and I saw this really guy dressed like you, kind of thing, but he was
Yeah.
leaning against a wall in a laneway. So I went over to ask him if I could take a picture with him, and he said, 'I'm not here for you. Please leave. It's
Mhm.
not your time. It's not your time.'" And
Mm.
she goes, "He was very polite because she didn't scare me at all.
Yeah.
Super polite. He just simply said, 'It's not your time. I'm not here for you. Please leave.'"
Mm. Yeah.
And of
See?
course, I'm just like, he's a great actor, isn't he? You know, but like
Bum, ba, ba,
it does
ba.
make you, it
Yeah.
does make you wonder. You know, like
Uh,
wow, I went all over the place that night, and the next night, I never saw anybody that looked like that.
see? There are definitely there's share stories, and you get into some of the like, going into some of the old Polish cultures, and Romania has its share, of stories there. I mean, to the point where now they're finding graves, right, through archaeology, where they have either the head is cut off and put down between the knees
Mhm.
of an individual, or they have a block, like a block of stone in between the teeth,
Yeah,
right, to make sure that they bite down and they're buried alive, and that's the end of it. Like this was a real thing. Kat says, I've heard about this actually, Kat. In Wilno, Ontario, there's a story about the Wilno vampires, and apparently there is a vampire cemetery. I have not yet researched it, but many people tell me this. There are stories of you know, vampire stories that come from Europe as people migrate here or settled here. Also, with the different, in fact, I did a show with Kat talking about the different wolves, dogmen, and the loup-garou, which would have been, the indigenous and French. Also, the French culture picked it up, loup-garou, which is werewolf. And in New Orleans, it's rue with an R, rougarou. But technically speaking, loup in French is wolf. So the wolf people, and they didn't look like a typical dogman. They were just tall and lanky, and they basically walked upright. And you've heard us talk about stories about the wolves that walk upright, from just stories that people, I mean, for years and years and years and years, people would just send me in stories, and it's incredible the stories, um, how they're all the same, but
yeah.
these beings, and we've had your own encounter. You had one when you were writing one night over at the
Oh yeah,
manor.
that was
The
the same.
lopers,
The lopers. They don't run like
they don't
they
run,
don't run
they
like a
lope.
dog. Yeah, they lope. You know, like a horse will do a gallop. Yeah,
Yeah.
picture a horse galloping, but this is a dog, and it's like the size of it's bigger than a Great Dane, and it's shaggy, and everyone's going to say it's an Irish wolfhound or a Russian wolfhound. It's
Yeah,
not.
too big.
It's not like that. This is way too big, way too shaggy. Um, it's muscular, and yet it looks anorexic. It's got a really elongated snout, and when
Mhm.
it runs, you can see its lips are pulled back. Like you can see its teeth. I was just writing on the veranda one night. It was just getting to dusk, so the vision was still good. And this
Mm.
thing came jogging down the street, and I was like, "What is that?" And as it went by, I'm like, "I don't want to know."
Mm.
I just grabbed all my gear, went in the house. I don't know what the heck it was,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. But there have been. I mean, even remember, buddy who saw one that just slipped away behind a lamppost and came, what was it,
That's
an
what I was saying
animal,
earlier.
or
That was
came out
Rob.
the animal? Yeah, like, what is
Yeah,
that about?
yeah. It was a foggy morning. He was on his way to work, and
Yeah.
he said this guy was a little bit, you know, bigger, not muscular, but like a little bit of a tummy on him. And he walked across the road, and the fog comes off the river, and it obscured him for a minute. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
not going to go until I make sure that guy's on the other side of the sidewalk. I can't see
Yeah.
anything in this soup." And
Yeah, yeah.
when he came out of the fog under the light, it wasn't a guy. It was that loping big dog thing. He's just like, "Nope,
Mhm.
nope, not doing that
We're
today."
good.
And he
Yeah.
backed the truck all the way down the road and turned. But you
Mhm.
know what? You had someone on on one of your shows really recently who was talking about one of the saints depicted with a wolf head.
That was Brian Bowden. Yeah, he's on again tomorrow night. I know what the dog head.
I thought I knew stuff. And then I saw that. I'm like, yeah, you know what, Wayne? You don't know anything. I never saw that. Ever in my life did I see something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah. See? And that's even back then they knew that.
Yeah.
Like that, and there are images that are depicted. So it's I don't know. It is insane. It is insane. Kat says the team I was with interviewed a couple in Quebec, and the woman told me her husband was from the mountain people and they're loups-garous. I was introduced. We never went back. I'd have been all over that. Just saying, I would have been.
We're
all
going
over
back.
That. I know, right? See, the dogman does typically run on all fours, 5 feet at the shoulders. Yeah, they actually get into you can get into the where was I going with it? Yeah, dogman. Loups-garous, they walk upright. There've been a lot of sightings of that, even in, by the way, Tamara, Burlington. There have been all kinds of sightings there. Craziness, but they have definitely been spotted. Yes, St. Christopher. I was going to say that, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah. See, the one I saw that went down the road, it was cool because it went by the church that's across the road, and that church is all built with cement block, like old stone block. Mm-hmm. So I walked over in the morning, mm-hmm. and put my body up against those blocks, and where that dog's head was just above my hip.
Yeah,
like, I'm 6'2", right? So my hip is higher than the kitchen table. So it would be at least 3.5 to 4 feet at the head.
Yeah. Yeah. See, there are a lot of sightings out that way. Tamara said she's seen them as well. And then, of course, we have the Port Robinson beast, which is the typical dogman sighting. It's not a typical, wolf that walks upright, which is tall and lankier. Yeah. And when they run, they lope. This is typical dogman. So do you want to just go over that story again real quick?
Yeah. Briefly,
for those who are just tuning in, because then I'm going to finish off with the Wendigo.
That's a Wendigo. Yeah, I remember that story too. Yeah. I met a woman after doing a show, and I actually was picking up a trailer, and she worked at this place, and she started telling me about this experience that she had when she was a teenager. This woman was in her 20s, right? So she'd tell me the story, and she said in Port Robinson they sort of had this rite of passage for the high school kids with this haunted house, like the haunted house, just a derelict house. So you would be challenged to go up to the veranda and stand there for 10 minutes, or go inside for 5 minutes and go upstairs for 2 minutes, that sort of thing, see how brave you are. Anyway, so she said, we're coming down the road and just we drive by the old haunted house. Remember when we were kids, sort of thing. And she said, here comes this kid just bolting, down the laneway and across the road. And they're laughing, going, oh, there's another one that didn't make it. Ha, big giggles, right? And from between the houses comes this big dog, like big, sort of all fours kind of thing, looked right at them. And she goes, man, the blood went out of me. Like I was never so scared in my whole life. So she's like, I slapped my girlfriend, and she's like, book it. So
boy.
They stomp on it, tear down the street. She goes, speed limits meant nothing to me at that point. Just get out of here. So we turned and headed out onto the main secondary road. And she goes, I looked over thinking like, okay, the river should be there. We're good. She goes, I looked over, and this thing was keeping pace with the car. And she's like, book it. She's like, we were doing 80 kilometers an hour. That's 50 miles an hour down a dirt secondary road with this dog belting along beside them. She goes, then we hit the highway and we really booked it, and we got home. And she goes, we weren't far from the haunted house where we lived. She goes, we parked the car, ran in the house, slammed the doors. Nobody was home, locked everything, shut all the lights off, and that was it. And she goes, the next morning we went out and checked the car, and it was all scratched down the side of the car where this thing was running and pulling on the mirrors and stuff as it was going. She goes, I never went by it, so I was terrified. I don't know what it was. I was scared to death.
See, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy. And I don't know how many stories have surfaced from that point But there's a lot of stories through that time where
Yeah.
um where people have seen and heard these things just screaming, even, in the night. So they're
Yeah.
definitely, but it's your
Excuse me.
typical dogman type sighting. It's a lot different than the typical sightings. She goes, what places where Bigfoot and dogmen have battles? That would be Land Between the Lakes, which is in the Kentucky and Tennessee area. So if you just look up Land Between the Lakes, you'll see all kinds of stuff that's crazy.
Just
Just
back to Port
crazy.
Robinson, just quick. I think when the
Or this one
problems,
here is a Port Robinson beast. Yeah,
at the
that's the
Beast of Port
lore of it.
Robinson,
Or
the
either, yeah.
the
So,
Beast of Port Robinson started up like really being noticed right after they put the Welland Canal through,
yes.
because they figured that when they dug this thing through, that cut off its migratory pathways. There was no way for it to migrate north and south or east and west because this canal went right through the whole landscape.
Hmm. Yes, which would make sense. I mean, that thing goes down towards, if it traveled even along down the Great Lakes, you have the Michigan Dogman as well. So I think there's a
Yeah,
lot of crossover. I mean,
sure.
I'm sure, like, they can travel great distances. At least it's believed that they do. Um, okay, we're going to touch on this one because I think I think it's a good one personally, and it seems to be. It's one of these older type stories that have just been around for ages and ages, and it's primarily a Canadian bit of folklore, and it's the Wendigo. So it's the Algonquin Indigenous legend, and these are the largest of the Aboriginal languages, by the way, goes back to their prehistory oral traditions. It's believed that a mythical creature or an evil spirit. This is what it is. So that makes it interesting because we're getting into, two different things. Is it a spirit or is it a mythical? Is it a cryptid, a being? For the most part, some tales suggest that he was a lost hunter who avoided hunger by resorting to cannibalism, and it transformed him into a crazed beast. This is pretty much the original lore, described as 12 to 15 high in height, barefoot, smells like rotting flesh, sharp teeth, long stringy hair, glowing red eyes, very aggressive, and unclear as to its actual origins. Some people believe they were once human, while others believe that they were and are spiritual in nature. Possession of sorts? Meh, possible. Sometimes he is compared to werewolves. The earliest documented account goes back to 1636 in the province of Quebec, where a Jesuit priest named Paul Lejeune wrote a letter to Rome complaining of a native woman from a nearby village who had been warning people that the Atchin, another word for Wendigo, and I'm sure I'm pulverizing that, would be attacking a neighboring village. He wasn't scared, but he was very angry that she was somewhat undermining his teachings. It's said that one can become a Wendigo if they're cursed by a shaman, bitten by another Wendigo, or slowly starved to death. Most of the sightings are in Canada. However, there have been reports of the colder northern U.S. states, such as Minnesota. In the turn of the 20th century, the Algonquin people claimed that a large number of their people went missing, and they attributed the disappearances to the Wendigo. So you know, that's crazy. It's one. I it kind of reminded me of the Skinwalker in a way.
Yeah, yeah, it does sound a lot like that.
Yeah.
Not the screaming, like you've heard the screaming at night of the Wendigo, and I've heard like if you lock eyes with them, it's so terrifying that it stops your heart.
Hmm.
And they scare you to death.
Yeah.
So I could do
And
without that.
that's the idea. Yeah, like don't make eye contact, that kind of thing. Yeah, his first show with us last month was on the Dogman, and he did speak of it. It was crazy. Um, then that deer, very creepy. Yes. I was taught he was an evil spirit that stole the sun and kept it in his medicine pouch. He made us walk in darkness. Raven tricked him to drop his pouch. The raven flew the sun back to where it belongs. I love that.
That's
I
a
love
great
that.
story.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. I love the stories. I just love the lore of all of it. Um, so when you're getting into to some of these type of stories and you start realizing that they go back from like like just ages. And some of it, this is where I think media comes into play, and you often see them incorporate some of this stuff, like the Kraken, for example, which is part of a Scandinavian mythology. The giant sea creature was supposed to be like 1 mile, or 1.5 kilometers in length, and it first appears around the 13th century in an Icelandic saga about two sea creatures. One 18th century account by Bishop Eric Pontoppidan described it as being so big it could be mistaken for an island. But many people believe it originated from sightings by sea mariners, which ended up being a giant squid, which, I mean, now they know. They've actually captured these things, in doing deep sea exploration. So we know that these things are out there. And again, back then, you just don't see them. Sea monsters, what's a monster? What's the connection? What's just cryptid? Do they all get lumped together when you're getting into, because some people will say, you can get into, mischievous things like even gnomes. Get me started. Don't laugh at me. I hate those things.
I know you do.
Just saying. Just saying.
Well, I remember that time I had a guy helping me at the house, and he's up doing the shingle, and he gets up on the roof and he starts sidestepping like the gnome.
And he looked like a gnome. I'm just going to say.
And I'm filming him, and he goes, "Hey, when you're done, send that to Michelle." And I went, "Hey, how about I send it to you and you send it to Michelle?" He goes, "Because I don't want to die."
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
But he did. Look, he had like the long white, like the hair and the white beard, and he looked like a gnome. He was just really red in the face. And I'm just like, sometimes I would just see him when I got to the house, kind of like, just look too close for
At
comfort.
Halloween, I wanted to dress him up like a gnome and sit him on the front veranda.
Of course you would.
It's great. Shut up. It's perfect.
I know. That was always a joke when we were traveling in Romania, that because it must have been the year of the freaking gnome, because everywhere we went, gnomes were for sale. There's a lot of places that you can drive through, especially through the mountains. The Carpathians, I just love them. They're dear to me. But they would have these huts, and it was all souvenir stuff. And it was freaking gnomes. That was the flavor of the bloody month or the year. So of course, I'm there with Mel and Audie, and they thought it would be funny. We stayed at a villa in Bran, near Bran Castle. And of course, there were gnomes there for decoration. And what do? They lined them up outside my door going out onto the terrace. And it was a beautiful 2-story villa, just beautiful. We could see the mountains from there. Castle wasn't far away. And I opened the door in the morning. I look at them. I was like, I didn't say much as, okay, close the door. Don't fear them. Just not a fan of them, because it can be pretty mischievous.
Oh, they can be.
Right?
They cause troubles.
Yeah, so they can. They can absolutely cause trouble. So there was one more comment about an old map that was sort of floating around about a flat Earth. And what were our thoughts on that? Well, I'm not a flat earther, but I don't discount anything. And there's one thing I have learned in the field of highly strange things that are out there. Anything could be possible, I suppose. Our dimension into the next. But I know that there are maps out there, and there are also a lot of current stuff floating around over the last, let's say, 100 years, where there's been certain photographs taken, let's say, from a government capacity, and then there are photos or pictures on large tables or on a wall or on a floor that show the Earth in a flat map sort of thing. The Bible spoke of a firmament that went over a flat Earth. So what is that? What are your thoughts on that, Wayne?
I think we're living in a snow globe. I've told you this before.
Shake it up.
Yeah,
Shake it up.
that's what it
Yeah.
is. I mean, we think that, I mean, it's out there. When you start talking, like when I start talking about this kind of stuff, like my friends just leave and I wonder why I live alone. Kind of people are alone. I sit by myself. Wayne's on a tear again. But it's just like I'm just open-minded to different things. Like, what if it is flat? Okay. And we have
Okay.
a dome over it. And
Hypotheses. Okay.
the technology is so far advanced from us, we can't even imagine it. So when you're sailing a ship towards the end of the dome, where the dome comes down, they just stop the boat and create an illusion in front of you that you're still sailing. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
they're slowly turning it around and then just send you the other way, and you finish up at a different port of call, but it's still on the flat plane of things. And when we see UFOs and things in the sky, they're just maintenance people that open the door, open the sky, come in, drop down, and these are all your UFOs and grays and things. They're just maintenance people keeping an eye on the little terrarium that we're living in, running around.
Yeah.
It's just my own personal little fun theory, because people are like, well, we have pictures. Pictures of what?
Pictures.
We have pictures of the moon. We have pictures of the stars. And I'm like, where'd you get the pictures from? Right. Well, from NASA. Well, who owns NASA? The government. Right there.
Who also used to be like work for Disney, by the way.
Yeah, NASA was the special
where they
effects
started.
department for Disney.
Exactly.
So you have a special effects department telling you that space is real. Okay.
Yeah, well, I'm sure space is real, but it's what they're putting out there that makes you kind of go,
If it's a flat Earth and we're living in a globe, it's not there at all.
Da, 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 da. There's a lot of different things. We've actually had, people come on and talk about flat Earth theory. I think it's fascinating. People are very passionate about it, and they they have their perspective, and there are many different perspectives. It's either round or it's flat, but they do put in a good argument. But I don't know. Again, I've seen crazy things in my years in this high what I like to call take the John Keel approach in the world of high strangeness, But I have no doubt that there are things out there much bigger than us, and that we are just floating around in one form or another. And whatever the case may be, I want out.
Yeah. Beam me up. Help.
Beam me up. I want out. I'm tired of this ride.
Well, I mean, it's all relative too, though. I mean, like I remember being in high school and being in a physics class, and I'm not big on physics. It's all mathematics, right? I'm a hands-on guy.
Yeah.
But we were talking about how much a planet weighs, and you can tell how much it weighs by the colors and Wayne's mane that's going.
Yeah.
But we got jamming about it because we didn't have desks in that class. We sat at these big, long black counters because it was part of the chemistry labs. And I simply said, to the guy who's the teacher, I can't remember his name now, but I said, what if it's not as big as you think it is? And he's like, entertain me, enlighten me. He was a good teacher. And I said, well, what if space is this black table here? And everyone's laughing, and he's just like, no, just let him talk. Let him talk. I want to hear it, right? I said, what if space is this black table, which is made up of atoms? And if you look at atoms, they spin around each other like little solar systems. And the solar systems make up, thousands of solar systems make up the galaxies, and the galaxies, they're infinitely huge, right? But what if they're infinitely small? What if the galaxies are just clusters of atoms within a black arborite table? And all the class is quiet. Wayne's a weirdo, right? But the teacher was like, I love your thinking. He's like, I love the idea that, inside our table where we're talking, there are like trillions and trillions of civilizations living on atoms.
Stranger things have been proposed, so it's very, very possible.
Wayne disappears tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Great. I'm going to be like, where's my coffee? Wait a minute. Where'd he go?
Yep.
Where's the guy who makes me brekkie in the morning? I don't know.
I'm gone.
I know.
The drama kid is here right now, so if you hear that
Dexter,
going on,
of course.
He's
so,
drama.
well, thanks for hanging out with us tonight, and
You're welcome. I'm glad I could dive in there to help you out. I was home.
Yeah.
I didn't even get changed. I just came in from working outside. It was a panic alarm bell
I know.
going on.
See, he's a champion. Not that I can't do these things by myself. It's much more fun when you can do it with somebody else. So it's
For
just
sure.
worked out. So I'm grateful
Glad I
for
could help
that.
out.
But you know what? We will reschedule our guest, and man, hopefully it will be good. We'll try not to cross too many schedules and go from there. So Jason Offit, you'll be hearing from me, and I hope your other show went spectacular. So thank you guys all for hanging out. Thank you everybody in the chat room. As I say, oh, can we meet Dexter? I don't know. He hates being touched.
You know, he won't get picked up. There's no way. Like if I could get him close, I might be able to. Dex, come here. Dexter.
Yeah.
I'd like to do an open mic in October if you've got spare time. I would love to talk about some of the Halloween stuff I built and the people that we encountered that were just like totally blown away by over the top theatrics and stuff. I think it would just be a blast.
Yeah, we did a show like that last.
I can't remember. You know, my
last year.
memory's
We
like,
did. Yeah, the archive is there. But is there
yeah.
anything you
I
want to
just love
add? Of
doing that
course.
stuff. I just love doing that stuff. It's so much
It's a
fun.
lot of fun. It's a lot of
Like
fun.
I'm looking on the internet right now, folks, and it's just like I didn't have the internet when I was much younger. And they're building stuff that, here's how you build this thing. I said, I built that before the internet was even a thing, right? It's so cool.
Yeah. Thank you. So
That's
many
fun.
people chiming in. Thank you guys all. You guys are all just like awesome. I just love you. Do it. Do it. Yeah, there's nothing saying we can't do more either. Do a Day of the Dead thing. There's lots of fun we can have. Believe me. But guys, everybody in chat room, thank you, thank you, thank you to our sponsors: Folgers Coffee, Justin Snickers, Steve McGinnis. Tomorrow night, Sir Brian Bowden returns, and this time we're talking about his experiences and research about Bigfoot, and he's got great tales to tell, so many wonderful experiences. It'll be awesome. Tuesday, just because I want to give it an extra plug on Beyond the Outer Realm, you've noticed we had a couple of replays to commemorate our dear friend Dave Benison. So they have played out. So we are back in the saddle for a live show. We start off with Frey McDonald, and he joins me from Ireland to talk about the paranormal, haunted Irish locations, his research, his experiences, and so much more. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be just awesome. So again, you have been listening to the Outer Realm on United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network 105.3 from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM. There he is. Take a look, guys. There's Dexter the cat. There he is. Hi, Bubba. Look at him go. Now he's like, put me the heck down because I'm just going to rip your face off.
Yeah,
so
no, he's not.
That was, you guys want to see Dexter?
That's Dexter.
They're going to have to come into the very end of the show and see how quick that was. Yeah, there's Dexter. He does exist. He does. Yeah,
he's
terrible. Yeah, there he is. There he is.
Sketchy as the day is long.
Oh, yes. He's unbelievable. So, guys, we'll see you tomorrow evening. Thank you all for connecting up with us, and get ready for Bigfoot Talk tomorrow night.
Sleep well.